Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today we're going to take a look at 10 essential metal albums everyone should own. Number 10, let's go with Paranoid by Black Sabbath, their sophomore record here. Now, of course, I've heard tracks like Iron Man, War Pigs, and Paranoid to death, but it doesn't change the fact that Black Sabbath's second album here and the follow-up to their debut was one of the most important and influential metal albums ever. It was very hard to follow up their groundbreaking debut, and yet they did with flying colors here. The band sound possessed here with his menacing guitar riffs by Tony Iommi, and you didn't hear anything like this from any other band at this point, right? The riffage is thunderous, Geezer Butler's lyrics are great, and his bass lines are fantastic, and Bill Ward, just a wizard on the drums, no pun intended. But looking at the track listing here, of course, the songs that I mentioned are classics, even though I've heard them a million times, but I really enjoy some of the deeper cuts on here, like Planet Caravan, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, Fairies Wear Boots. That, to me, is the real meat and potatoes of this album. It's what I love best from this record here, but nevertheless, an absolute essential, an absolute all-time best album here by Black Sabbath, Paranoid, their second studio album, my number 10 on the list. Number 9, I'm going to go with Rain and Blood by Slayer, aka the album so great that Slayer had to slow things down on their next studio album because there was no way they were going to top it. Rain and Blood is just an unrelenting thrash metal beatdown here from beginning to end, and of course the guitar duo of Hanneman and King are on fire. Tom Araya sounds great, and Dave Lombardo was a machine on the drums as always. Looking at the track listing, of course, you have standouts like Angel of Death, Raining Blood as well, but some other tracks like Piece by Piece, Epidemic, Postmortem as well. So many great tracks on here. This is just Slayer firing on all cylinders and casually turning out one of the best thrash metal albums of all time. Another thrash classic here for my number 8. Let's go with Rust in Peace by Megadeth from 1990. Now, Megadeth had made some awesome albums in the mid to late 80s, but they really put everything together here on this album, of course, with the great lineup of Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman, Total Schivo, David Ellefson, and Nick Menza on the drums. They had instant chemistry together and turned out classic after classic here on Rust in Peace, like tracks like Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, Hangar 18, Take No Prisoners, Tornado of Souls, and that great guitar solo. Of course, the title track, Rust in Peace as well. Five Magics, just an awesome album here from top to bottom. Superb guitar work here. Dave and Marty work so well together, and since Dave these days goes through guitarists like 2 a year, I'm still holding out hope for some kind of a reunion between Dave and Marty at some point in Megadeth, but don't hold your breath, I guess, but definitely something I'd love to hear in the future. But still a great album here. I think the Rust in Peace lineup was unrivaled in the Megadeth catalog, and Rust in Peace is by far their best album as far as I'm concerned. Next up, we have Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne from 1980, one of the most successful debut albums in metal history to kickstart the most successful solo career in metal as well. Ozzy worked with the right people here, such as Randy Rhoads on guitar, Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, and Don Airey to turn out classics on this album like I Don't Know, Crazy Train, we've all heard it a million times, it's still a great song. Suicide Solution, Goodbye to Romance, Mr. Crowley, Revelation, Mother Earth, and Steal Away the Night. It turned Ozzy into a household name and, gave his career new life after his departure from Black Sabbath during a time when I think most people had probably written him off. At number 6, I'm going to go with Stained Class by Judas Priest. I think this album has become somewhat underrated over the years, not talked about as much as some of the other Priest records from this time period. There were a lot of great Priest options for this list, but I'm going to go here with Stained Class because this was a great Priest 70s album that I think was arguably the band at their best, right? Vocally, Rob Halford sounds incredible. KK Downing and Glenn Tipton worked amazingly together back then on guitar. Great guitar duo. And you have some standouts on here like Exciter, White Heat, Red Hot, Better By You, Better Than Me, Stained Class, the title track is great, so is Invader, Saints in Hell, awesome deep cut here, and then the great Beyond the Realms of Death, one of the best metal songs of all time. So Stained Class, a bit underrated, but in my opinion, an absolute essential and one of the best unsung albums in the Priest catalog. So for my number 6, wanted to include Stained Class on this list and give it some love. Top 5, let's go with Holy Diver by Dio from 1983. Like I was talking about with Blizzard of Oz, this is one of the best metal solo albums of all time, and also like Ozzy, Dio landed on his feet after his departure from Black Sabbath, and it's some of Ronnie's career-defining work here. The original lineup of Dio was incredible. Vivian Campbell has some masterful guitar work here, and of course Dio's vocals and lyrics, are fantastic and cement him as one of the all-time best. And look at the track listing, of course, tracks like Stand Up and Shout, anthemic, right? Holy Diver, Gypsy, Caught in the Middle, Don't Talk to Strangers, Straight to the Heart, Invisible, Rainbow in the Dark, Shame on the Night. All these tracks are essentials. It's just a top to bottom, all killer, no filler record, and it's one of metal's finest solo records of all time. Coming in at number 5 here on the list, have to go with the mighty Dio and his solo debut, Holy Diver. Number 4, Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera, an album that really popularized groove metal, which, calm down, ex-Hoarder fans, I said popularized, not invented, but Dimebag Darrell turns out some of his all-time greatest guitar riffs here on this record. During a time when metal was really overshadowed by grunge, Pantera rose above all that and really kept the metal flag going for years to come, with anthems on here like Mouth for War, A New Level, Walk, This Love, right? You have Live in a Hole, Hollow as well. So many awesome Pantera classics on this record here that certainly helped that cause. Top 3 here with Machine Head by Deep Purple. Kind of like what I was talking about with Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I've heard songs from this record, of course, like, Smoke on the Water and tracks like Highway Star to death. I never need to hear them again, probably, but there's no denying how important this album was to, early metal. One of those early 70s metal albums. It really helped to put metal on the map, in my opinion. And the Mark II lineup of Deep Purple were a force to be reckoned with when they weren't fighting with each other and trying to bite each other's heads off. And so this is a great example of that here. Fantastic record, and, one that, again, I enjoy some of the deeper cuts here as well. So Lazy, Pictures of Home is a fantastic track as well. So many awesome tracks in here that don't get talked about as, much as the few that get played on the radio. But it's a classic. It's one of Deep Purple's best. Even though it's not my favorite of the Mark II lineup, it's definitely one that I would definitely recommend if you were starting a record collection, and one of the first Deep Purple albums you should pick up. Absolutely get your hands on Machine Head. Fantastic stuff. Number 2 is Master of Puppets by Metallica. Now, I go back and forth between Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning for my favorite Metallica album of all time, but, this was their last with Cliff Burton here, and the band was getting more and more powerful with every release, and I think this was their most mature work up to this date, following up Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All. So it's absolutely loaded from top to bottom here with essential metal tracks, and whether you're a Metallica fan or not, you can't deny the greatness of songs like Battery and the title track, The Thing That Should Not Be, Sanitarium, Disposable Heroes is fantastic, Leper Messiah has an amazing riff, great instrumental in Orion, and Damage Inc. to close things out. Such a great album here by Metallica, a stellar thrash metal essential, and to this day, I think it's either their best or their second best studio album of all time, depending on which day you ask me. And finally, coming in at number 1, let's talk my favorite band of all time here, Iron Maiden, with Powerslave. Following up Peace of Mind, the band continued with another classic on their great string of albums in the 80s. It's a toss-up for me between this album and Number of the Beast, for which album has the most essential Iron Maiden tracks, but I think Powerslave, Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner as well, really put this over the top for me. Everyone should own this album. It's an absolute classic and sees Maiden, I think, at the height of their power, so it's incredible stuff here by Maiden. Definitely prime Iron Maiden, doing some of their best work in the studio, and of course it would translate amazingly well live. Live After Death, the live album that followed, is one of the all-time best, and a lot of these tracks are still live staples to this day. So Powerslave by Iron Maiden definitely should be owned by every metal fan, in my opinion. Great stuff here. Powerslave, 1984, incredible album, and one of my all-time favorites from Iron Maiden, who, like I said, are my all-time favorite band. So that wraps up this list here of 10 essential metal albums everyone should own. If you're starting a CD collection, these are the 10 that I recommend you pick up, first. I think it's a great way to kind of lay the foundation for your record collection. I think a lot of people will look at this list here and say, well, these are a lot of gateway albums. That's kind of the point, because these are the albums that I think are absolute essentials and are the records that, I think other work in the metal genre would be compared to for years to come. So absolute essential albums here, all albums that I think everyone should own, and if you're starting a collection, these are 10 albums that I think are a great way to start. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload. Let me know down in the comment section below, would you like to see a sequel for rock albums? Because I'd love to do that. That sounds really interesting. I can definitely put a list together. So let me know that down below. Also, what are your thoughts on my list, and what are some other essential metal albums every metalhead should own for starting a CD collection? I want to hear from you. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.